Today we're going to begin with the first part of a very special recipe, the Medovik and Spartak cakes, two classics of Eastern European baking, especially popular in Russia and neighboring countries. Medovik, also known as honey cake, has more than a century of history. It was born in Imperial Russia at the beginning of the 19th century and became famous in the court of Tsar Alexander I. Its most unique feature is the honey dough and its multiple layers filled with soft cream, which become incredibly tender as they rest. Spartak, on the other hand, is another traditional layer cake, made with cocoa sponge and delicate cream. It became popular in the 20th century, and since then, it has become a must-have for family celebrations in the region. These are recipes that have been passed down through generations, full of history and flavor, and today I want to share them with you in a simpler and more practical version so you can make them at home with accessible ingredients. So stay with me, subscribe, and learn step by step how to make these delicious cakes. In a heat-safe bowl, add 3 eggs, half a teaspoon of salt, and 200 grams of white sugar, 1 cup. Mix slightly to combine. Then add 70 grams of honey, a quarter cup, and 70 grams of butter with 82% fat content, 5 tablespoons. Place the bowl over a double boiler, in a pot with already boiling water. Stir the mixture until it reaches between 50 and 55 degrees Celsius, 122 to 131 degrees Fahrenheit. When it reaches that temperature, turn off the heat and add 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Stir constantly until it's fully incorporated and begins to foam. Remove the bowl from the double boiler and transfer it to the bowl of a stand mixer. Let it cool for 2 to 3 minutes. Add 500 grams of previously sifted flour, 4 cups. Add all the flour at once, just like I do. Attach the paddle attachment and mix on speed 1 for about 30 seconds to 1 minute, just until combined. You can also mix manually with a wooden spoon if you prefer. The mixture will be quite runny, it falls like a ribbon, similar to macaron batter. Stretch plastic wrap over your work surface. Pour out the warm dough and wrap it into a package as shown in the video. Once wrapped, place the dough in the refrigerator to rest for 2 to 3 hours, or overnight, which is even better. Here I show you the same recipe with a small change. Instead of using 500 grams of all-purpose flour, 4 cups, I use 350 grams of flour, 2 3/4 cups, and 150 grams of unsweetened cocoa powder, 1 1/4 cups. Then I add them to the same egg, sugar, and honey mixture as before. Stir thoroughly and wrap this dough into another package and store it in the fridge as well. So one dough is for Medovik, and the other one, with cocoa, is for the Spartak cake layers. The dough should look like this, similar to fondant in texture. I'm going to weigh each portion, about 100 grams, 3.5 ounces. I'll roll out the dough and cut it with an 18 centimeters diameter circle cutter, 7 inches. With this dough, you can make so many things. You can create number cakes, letter cakes, or simply roll it out and cut it as you like. It's also great for small cookies, round, square, the possibilities are endless. You can also roll it into a rectangle and make a rolled cake, Swiss roll, filling it with this cream I'll show you, or your preferred one. On my channel you'll find many ideas, different types of creams, extra firm and delicious fillings, perfect for these kinds of doughs. I prick them with a fork so they don't puff up. The Spartak dough I also weigh, and you'll see both doughs are approximately 1 kilo each, 2.2 pounds. I use the same technique for rolling out, dusting a little flour to prevent sticking. Once I have all the layers rolled out, I bake them. In my case, I use a convection oven at 170 degrees Celsius, 340 degrees Fahrenheit. I can bake 3 trays at a time, with 2 layers per tray. So in just a few minutes, all the layers are baked, around 10 to 15 minutes in total. Before baking, I brush off any excess flour from the layers. Here I show you all the layers rolled out on parchment paper. It's a very practical way to handle them without sticking or warping. After baking, I let them cool slightly on the same paper so I can remove them easily. Remember, they only need to bake for about 3 minutes per batch. You can stack the baked layers one on top of the other, wrap them in plastic wrap and keep them in the fridge. If you only want to store the dough unbaked, it can stay in the fridge for up to 3 days. If you want to freeze it, it will keep in the freezer for up to 4 months. The baked layers can be stored in the fridge, wrapped in plastic wrap to protect them and prevent them from drying out or absorbing odors, for up to 15 days. Now that we have both cake doughs ready, the one for Medovik and the one for Spartak, it's time to move on to the next step. Let's start making the cream. We'll prepare a delicious, versatile filling that will bring these cakes to life, layer by layer. Here I show you 2 types of cream, chantilly, whipping cream, or whatever it's called in your country. I have Puratos non-dairy ambient cream and traditional dairy cream. For this recipe, I'll use 250 milliliters of Puratos ambient cream, 1 cup. I pour it into a bowl and whip it with a handheld mixer until stiff peaks form. Until it's firm and stable. Once whipped, I set it aside. In another bowl, I place 700 grams of yogurt or sour cream with 30% fat, 3 cups. And add 80 grams of powdered sugar, 2/3 cup. I sift it directly over the yogurt. And beat them together until fully combined. When both mixtures are ready, I combine them in one bowl. I beat everything together for 30 seconds to 1 minute max, until I get a fluffy, creamy, and smooth texture. Thanks to the sour cream, this frosting is firm and has an incredible flavor. Look at this consistency, it's perfect. It adds great creaminess and a delicious touch. Very different from other creams. You're going to love it when you try it. Now I'll show you how to candy cherries quickly and easily. I'm using frozen cherries that I've thawed for an hour. I place them in a saucepan with the juice from the bag. Optionally, you can add a teaspoon of sugar, depending on how sweet you like them. Bring the mixture to a boil. Meanwhile, in a small glass, dissolve 2 teaspoons of cornstarch in a bit of water. About 20 to 30 milliliters, 1 to 2 tablespoons, just enough to dissolve it well. When the cherries begin to simmer gently, add the cornstarch mixture to thicken. Stir well and let it boil a bit longer, stirring constantly until thickened. Then transfer to a wide plate, spread out the cherries. And cover with plastic wrap so they cool completely before using. You can do this in advance. It's ideal to do the same day you bake the cookies for the cake. That way the cherries have time to cool down. But if you prefer, you can candy them at the last minute. It's totally optional, organize however works for you. Now it's time to assemble the cake. Here I have both packets with the cookie layers I prepared the day before. I'll start with the Medovik cake layers. On a cake board, or a plate, whatever you have. I place half a teaspoon of cream, just enough so the first cookie sticks and doesn't slide. I place the first cookie, then add 2 or 3 tablespoons of cream. Spread it evenly over the entire surface. We're going to use all 14 cookie layers. We'll alternate layers with only cream and others with cream and candied cherries. I do it like this, one layer with just cream, the next with cream and some of the cherries we prepared earlier. And repeat this pattern until the end. When I've placed about 10 or 11 layers, it's time to insert supports to straighten the cake. First, I place a strip of transparent plastic about 20 centimeters high, 8 inches. Then, I adjust a cake ring around it. To keep it tight, I add some rubber bands around. Then I continue layering, cream, cookie, cream, until I've added all 14 layers. Once finished, I gently press the entire cake. Now that the mold is in place, it's the perfect moment to press slightly, to make sure the cake is as straight as possible. This helps the cream reach the edges and the cake take shape from the inside. Now, to protect the top cookie layer, I cover it with plastic wrap, to prevent it from drying out while it rests. Here I show you I've made the same cream, same recipe and quantity, to fill the Spartak cookie layers, the chocolate ones. Since I have fewer candied cherries left, I'll only use them in a few layers. I fill 3 layers with cream. And on the 3rd layer, I add some cherries on top. Repeat the pattern until the last layer. Once assembled, I cover it with plastic wrap just like the previous cake. I cover it well and place both cakes in the fridge overnight. This resting time is key so the cookies soften, the flavors meld, and the cakes are smooth and ready to decorate. Now comes the final step, the last recipe in this complete tutorial. It's the famous butter ganache, also known as magic ganache. A simple, practical recipe that always works. I'm using 250 milliliters of Puratos ambient cream, 1 cup. 250 grams of white chocolate substitute, 1.5 cups. And 250 grams of unsalted butter at room temperature, 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons. First, place the chocolate in a heat-safe jug. Add only part of the cream and microwave to melt. Once hot, add the rest of the cream, cold. Use an immersion blender to emulsify the mixture. This method has a great advantage. Adding cold cream after melting helps create a more stable ganache. Creamier and faster to cool, without overheating. Now I set aside the ganache to cool a bit. Look, it's under 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and will keep cooling while we beat the butter. Place 250 grams of butter at room temp, 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons. And beat it for a few minutes until light and fluffy. Scrape down the sides of the bowl so the butter is well blended. Then add the ganache gradually in batches. And continue mixing until the ganache is perfect. Check this texture, soft, creamy, easy to work with. When you run a spatula through it, it should glide easily, but not be too stiff or crumbly. If you're in a cold environment, the ganache may firm up quickly. In that case, microwave it a few seconds to soften again. Now I take the cake from the fridge, it's cold and compact. To unmold, use a knife or a long spatula, whatever you have, to separate the cream from the plastic without damaging the cookie layers or the cream. Unmold carefully, and look at the result, a straight, firm cake, ready to work on. Now, using the spatula or your favorite tool, start covering the cake with the ganache, bit by bit, layering it to create a smooth finish. Apply a thin layer first, then a second coat to reinforce it. Not too thick since the cake is tall and the ganache must be enough to cover the whole thing. After smoothing the surface, place it in the fridge for about 10 minutes to set. Here's a trick I love. I save a couple teaspoons of the chocolate ganache for decoration. The leftover ganache I'll color. I'm going with pink, but use whatever shade you like. Pastel or intense. Microwave the colored ganache for about 10 seconds. Once out, it becomes liquid. This texture is perfect for a drip effect. So the ganache drips beautifully down the sides of the cake. If you want to coat the whole cake, like I'll do, let the ganache rest for a few minutes so it slightly thickens but stays pourable. Pour it over the top of the cake. Then spread it down the sides to cover the whole thing. Even in small amounts, this ganache covers beautifully. It works for multiple uses and gives a smooth, crack-free, professional finish. Remember, a good base, a level cake, and a great cream. Those are the keys to decorating perfect cakes. If you follow this, success is guaranteed. Once smooth, look how it turned out, perfect. This ganache is a dream, super easy to make. The proportions are simple, 1 to 1 to 1. If you use 250 milliliters of cream, then 250 g of white chocolate and 250 g of butter. No mistakes possible. Now for the decoration. Also easy, but beautiful and elegant. I'll use my smallest spatula. With it, I'll make petal-like shapes, dabbing gently around the cake. Do 2, 3, or 4 petals, however you like. Then I add some white or silver sugar pearls. It's an elegant, delicate finish. On top, I'll add some leftover cream. So you can see the texture, also great for piping bags. Depending on how you need it, let it rest to firm up. Or microwave briefly to soften. This cream is amazing. I highly recommend it. Now for the second cake. I'll make the same magic ganache and cover this one too. This time I'll decorate it with a chocolate drip. I'll make it with some dark chocolate, cream, and a little butter. Melt it well, but don't apply it hot. For final touches, I'll use all kinds of chocolates I had saved. Kinder Bueno, Kit Kat, chocolate coins, heart-shaped marshmallows, and some pearl sprinkles. Here are both cakes, beautifully decorated. Elegant, neat, and easy to achieve. I hope you enjoyed this full tutorial. I hope you learned something new and my tips helped you. If you're not yet subscribed, I invite you to do it now. And if you liked this content, please share it. Help more people discover my work, my recipes, and learn with me. Leave me a comment, I'd love to read you. Plus, it helps the channel grow and reach more people. Thanks so much for being here, and see you soon.